Call the meeting to order. If you would stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. West, if we could have the roll call, please.
Mr. Reedy?
Here.
Mr. Hay?
Here.
Mrs. Thompson? Here. Mr. Jackman?
Here.
Mr. Mickelson?
Here.
Mr. Batello?
Here.
Chairman Jellicoe?
Here. If I could have a motion, please, for the approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nay. The motion passes. We also have an addendum. So if I could have a motion for the addendum.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for the addendum. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Okay, then the motion passes. We are to superintendent reports. Nutrition services update. Mrs. Aramosby.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Superintendent McGovern, Board of Trustees. Just wanted to give you an update on what's going on in nutrition services. If you go, so this is kind of a snapshot of what participation, the percentage of participation was like last year. Breakfast, I did it month by month, and the total percentage of average participation of breakfast with free students was 20.8%, which is really low. So we're missing a lot of the kids, that are free that should be eating every day. The reduced kids are 57% of those kids are eating lunch every day. That's free kids. Reduced is for breakfast is 15.7%. And lunch is 51.9%. So once again, I just feel like we're missing a lot of kids, especially at breakfast, which, is really kind of sad. So we've come up with some ideas on how to make that better. And grab and go. So the junior high, we're going to be offering a second chance breakfast at the junior high. Chris Kundal, what time do we?
We're going to do that between first and second period.
So we're going to have something where the kids can go and enter their number in and grab something. So I have some examples of what we're going to be doing over there, like the little, the bags are grab and go breakfasts. And those are just 3 samples of what we can do. We can expand that a lot further, quite honestly. I'd like to get into more hot foods, like we have kind of it's a flapjack, but it's actually like sausage. It's like a corn dog, but it's sausage with pancake breading. So that's an option as well as we get down the road. And breakfast burritos, those types of things. They always have to take a fruit. So that's like the key thing, a fruit, a grain, and then a milk. So they have to take 3 components every day for breakfast. So that's kind of what we're looking at. We also, at the junior high, another option that the junior high and high school are going to have, and Black Butte High School and Farson. I mean, this is a little bit later on the slideshow, but while I'm talking about this, they're all getting vending machines. So those are some of the items. That's what we can put in the vending machines. We'll have yogurt parfaits. We'll also have fresh fruit cups. Once again, we have to have a grain with it, but we can put some graham crackers with it, those kind of things as well. So we have a lot of really great things for the kids at all of those schools. The high school, they're going to have a 9-minute passing period between, is it 9:03 to 9:12, I believe. So they'll have a long passing period. Well, once again, we're going to be out in the main hallway, down by the concession stand, and then over in the library as well. So we're going to try to hit as many spots as we can for the kids where they can once again grab, a breakfast and go to class and eat it. We're trying to make it so we don't want anything super messy. So once again, it's going to be granola bars and just nothing with syrup, those kind of things. They have like mini waffles and little things in pouches that they can take too, that kids seem to really like. So those are just some ideas that we have for that.
Mrs. Aramosby?
Yes.
Just a question.
Uh-huh.
Is the junior high anticipating the subject between first and second periods? It looks like the high school is extending that break.
They are,
between
correct.
First and second. Is the junior high going to do the same thing to get just a little longer break to take advantage of this?
Not at this time. Am I correct in saying?
Right. We're going to see how it goes. If we need to make adjustments, we can do that. But I really think it'll be okay.
And we'll try to be as accessible as possible and have, just make it easy and fast for kids too. So, the revenues for the last 3 years, 2016-17, the program brought in $1,984,164.11. 2017-18 was a little bit less. We lost a lot of kids and free and reduced that year, so it's $1.876 million. And then 2018-19, we went back up to $1.968 million. So a little bit of growth. We did get subsidized though, so by the district, which was beneficial as well. But I don't know. Hopefully, with increasing breakfast, giving kids more breakfast options, I think that's going to really help. With breakfast, I know for me personally, I'm not, especially for high school kids and junior high kids, they're getting there, the kids on the buses at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they have until 7:30 to eat their breakfast. A lot of them aren't hungry at that time, so that's why we kind of want to hit these kids around 9 o'clock, a little bit later. I'm sure they're getting kind of hungry by that point in time, and then, that way, once again, we just want it to be convenient for them. The expenditures over the last 3 years, 2016-17 was $1.998 million, 17-18, $1.844 million, and 2018-19, we kind of stayed very close. So we were almost exactly the same as we were in 2017 and 18. Subsidies, as I mentioned, we were subsidized in 2018, and I believe it was about $150,000, if I remember correctly. In 2019, this summer, we were subsidized $272,662.78. Part of that was to help with the April bonus that the staff received, and also the retention that they received as well. So the total for 2019 is $388,092.71. So once again, idea is to increase breakfast participation, like I mentioned. I'd like to get mostly the free and reduced kids. I mean, obviously all kids, but it's those free and reduced kids where they don't necessarily get a meal at night when they get home. So we really want to make sure they're getting a meal at the beginning of the day. If we increased, right now the free percentage for breakfast is about 21%. I'd like to get that up to 50%. And if we got that up to 50%, as of last year's numbers, that would be 3,239 meals per month. And that would increase our reimbursement $62,383.14. Reduced, they were at 15.7% last year participation. So if we increase that to 50%, that's only 483 meals per month, and that would be $7,998.48. Paid kids, there was only 2.9% of paid kids that ate breakfast. And once again, we're really trying to just have a new look for our program and get newer, better options and be more accessible to the kids. I know at the high school, when my girls were doing things for volleyball or sports, and they're having dinners in the cafeteria, there's so many girls around this thing, I didn't even know where the cafeteria was. So that's why we really want to get out, into the main hallway and be where the kids are and hopefully catch them. They have a lot of good foods. Vendors, I know in the beginning, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, this food is horrible. But vendors, they have to make a living too. And so they really have, they're trying so hard to make everything better. And they really have. There's a lot of really great products. So that's what we want to bring to the kids. So if we increase the paid students, got them to 25% across the district, which would be 519 kids per day, or per month, I'm sorry, that would be $1,448. And then the total reimbursement for that month would be $71,000, so almost close to $72,000 for the month, just for breakfast. With lunch, right now, 57% of the free kids are eating lunch, which is great, but I would still like to see that grow to 75%. So increasing that by 18%. which would be around 3,146 meals per month. That would bring in $95,984.46 per month. And reduced, if we brought that up to 8%, right now they're at 52%, so if we brought that up to 60%, then the meals per month, just 483 kids per month, that's an additional $7,265.70. Paid, 22% of paid kids eat lunch currently, and if we brought that up just 8%, then that would be 519 meals per month at $4,341.87. So the total reimbursement we would receive for that, just by increasing participation by that percentage for each group, would bring in an additional $107,592.03. So overall, between the two programs, that would bring in an additional $179,000. So, I mean, which is substantial. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Madam Chair. Sorry. And that was essentially with no new expenses, correct? I mean, just the cost of food, or?
Just the cost of food.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's what we're planning so far. Right now, we're keeping the same staff, so it always depends on participation, of course. I mean, we really want to see a tremendous increase in participation, so we may have to bring, staff on a little bit, but we, for a few extra hours, that kind of thing. But it wouldn't be substantial.
And my other question was, on one of those first slides, you had 5,443 students. Is that how many are actually enrolled?
No.
It's just how many qualify.
Which slide was that?
It's like slide 3.
Slide 3.
It's on the very bottom left.
Bottom left. Oh, okay. So that was the average students per month that we had in the district.
Okay, perfect.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so what's new at the high school? The biggest thing is one lunch for all of the students. So once again, we've got to be accessible to all of the students, which is why we came up with the idea to get stations. So we have carts coming. There'll be 2 out in the main hallway, kind of in that area where the office was last year, across from there, so kind of on both sides. Then, like I said, 1 down by the concession stand, and then 1 in the library. Or is that, what else is that called? I forget. It has a couple of names. But anyway, the library. So those will be grab-and-go stations. So with those, it's going to be, we're going to have burgers and fries and pizza. Once again, really easy things for kids to grab and go. We're still going to have the cafeteria open, and with that, we're going to have, we're planning on doing a pasta bar, a ramen bar, a taco bar, soups. We'll have more like fresh homemade. I mean, everything's going to be freshly made. That's the route that we're going for. But we'll still have things like the Salisbury steak and mashed potatoes and gravy and those kind of things in the cafeteria. The vending machines, they'll be located. There's going to be 1 drink machine and 1 meal or snack machine in the high school main hallway. So there's going to be 1 of each. So in those machines, I'm really excited to get them because we can put those salads, which is a reimbursable meal. So once we get our software program up and running, which is in mid-September, we'll be able to let free and reduced kids get a meal out of the vending machines as well. So they can put in a PIN number, and then they can be dispensed a meal. So they can also hit the vending machines as well. The only way that a free or reduced kid would be able to get, or any student in our district, is if they have money in their general account. So that's kind of where, if you have money in your general account, any kid can put in their PIN number and access any of those items. Or we're going to have snacks, also drinks, all kinds of beverages. So we'll have things like different kinds of chips. They're always baked chips typically, but we can have popcorn, we can have brownies. There's all kinds of compliant, Smart Snack compliant items.
Will these be available all day long? Or,
Yes.
Okay, like the vending machines and those kinds of things. So
Yes.
Kids don't all get hungry at the same time.
Exactly. Yes, they will be. And so that's the other thing too, because the other thing, as we know, so there are kids at the high school who are in an athletic activity or any activity right after school, and then they have something right after. So say they're in volleyball right after, and then they have marching band after that, because marching band can't go until the football players are off the field. So I know my daughter was in both last year, and I had to run food to her because there wasn't enough time. So, I mean, there are kids just sitting at that high school that, don't get, they don't get food. So that's it'll be nice for them to be able to go and get a meal. And so we'll have a supper option as well. So that's kind of a different thing as well. So no, we're not just going to be doing breakfast and lunch. It'll be supper as well. So that can be considered a supper that we would get reimbursed for. So that's part of it as well. But like I said, they can have snacks, chips, drinks, those kinds of things. But they're all Smart Snack compliant. They're healthy, but they taste good. It's not a bad thing. So I hope kids will try them out. I'd like to do taste tests with the kids so they can actually try them. I think, staff has actually eaten some of our brownies and probably didn't even know that they were Smart Snack compliant because you really, unless you know, you don't know. So they're that good. So another area where we're going to have 2 more vending machines at the high schools in the concession area. So right across from there. So once again, on weekends too, when there are people, sporting events or whatever, if the concession stand isn't open, then, they're going to take cash, credit or debit cards, or the student PIN numbers. So they'll be able to utilize all of those functions on the vending machines. The other area is by the weight room in the auxiliary gym. There's going to be 2 down there as well. So when you walk in, there's the coach's office, and they're going to be off to the right against that chain link fence. And then also where we currently have vending machines in the entryway by the Rock Springs High School cafeteria, which is where we've always had vending machines as well. So that's going to be another option for the kids. So once again, the reimbursable meals that we'll get reimbursed by the government for will breakfast, lunch, and supper for all students. They're going to be set on timers. The nice thing is too, we're bound to, kids can't get a second, so a free student wouldn't be able to get a second meal. The machine will automatically, let them know if they've reached the limit. I don't know how it's going to say exactly, but it'll just basically let them know that they can't purchase another meal unless they have cash or credit or debit. The other thing is, so all of this is going to be, the pieces with the free and reduced kids is going to roll out mid-September because that's when we're getting our new software program, Mosaic, which is compatible with Power School, the vending machines, so everything's going to talk to one another. It's going to make it really easy for our staff. It's going to simplify their lives, quite honestly, in a lot of ways, with paperwork, with inventory, ordering, all kinds of stuff. So Mosaic's kind of like one-stop shopping, where everything will be at everybody's fingertips and hopefully make it a lot easier for everyone.
So what is the plan until mid-September?
We are going to, honestly, we're going to be having staff fill out a JOT form, correct?
That's only in some situations.
In some situations, not all. So they'll be still going through the Mosaic. The current program that we have, OneSource, it's still up on some computers. Some of our computers are dated, and so we have to go with a JOT form. So it's going to be, the kids will punch in a number like they always do, and it'll just go into this form, and then we'll have to enter it in later. The reason for that is because on these older computers, it would take 15 to 20 seconds for each student to, which is too long. So that's why we're speeding up the process, and then we'll just have a staff member enter that in after lunch. So that'll be the process. So it'll be much easier, and students can get through. So it won't impact students at all. So once again, that'll be mid-September when they come, when everything gets up and running. So Black Butte High School, once again, Black Butte High School is going to get 1 vending machine. Farson is going to get 2, so they'll have a meal machine and then a drink machine. And then the junior high is going to get 1. So the high school students get actually, they get 2 choices. So they get flavored drinks, I should say, but junior high kids can only have water. So junior high kids will have access to water, but once again, they'll have snacks. They can have all the snacks, chips, and the reimbursable meals as well. And then the high school has 8, as I mentioned. So in the past, we've had Nutri-Slice for our menus. This year, once again, this is part of all of this package. It's called Meal Viewer. Which is going to be so helpful. Nutri-Slice was great, but it was also incredibly time-consuming because you had to, all the input time from transferring it from our current program over to Nutri-Slice was incredibly time-consuming. So with Meal Viewer, whenever we enter something in on our menus, when we're creating the menus, that's automatically going to go onto Meal Viewer so parents can see, go online just like they did. with Nutri-Slice, there's going to be the online menu, and so it'll be the same. It's just, I shouldn't say the same, but very similar to what we've had in the past. The other difference is with My School Bucks, so that's going to be the new payment program once all of this rolls out. Until then, we still have My Payments Plus. That's up on our website right now, so parents are still able to currently make payments into their child's accounts at this time. I spoke with the company Heartland that we're going with, and they said it'll pull everything over, so it's going to be a really smooth transition when they come. So everybody's meal accounts, if you have money in your child's account, it's going to go from the My Payments Plus over to the Meal Viewer, or not Meal, but My School Bucks. So.
Sorry, Angie.
Yes.
I did have a question.
Okay.
So how will parents find out about the My School Bucks and the Meal Viewer? Is that something that they're going to learn at orientation?
I don't, honestly, we haven't really discussed that. I didn't know if we should wait until everything rolls out. I mean, I would like them to be informed. So I really don't know what principals are going to tell people at their open houses. I mean, if anybody has questions, I didn't want to confuse people since it's mid-September. So I just thought maybe it'd be better, like once, 2 weeks ahead of time, just let people know. That was kind of what I was thinking might be best, but whatever everyone else thinks, I'm okay with too. I'm open. I just don't want people to get confused between the whole process. So I thought it might be easier just to stick with My Payments Plus right now. And then, so the other thing, Lenny Lou today has uploaded the menus onto the Nutrition Services website and also the district webpage. So it's going to be kind of like it used to be a few years ago before we had Nutri-Slice. People can print out their menus. You can select elementary, or Farson is a little bit different since you have 4 school days. But so all of the menus will be there on the website, both on the Nutrition Services site and the district website as well. So people have access to that. And for those that have students with diabetes, the carb counts are on there as well. So they can check that out. Okay. So another piece that I'm in charge of is the Wellness Committee, and the goal for 2018-19, the Wellness Committee provides a way to inform teachers, staff, students, and families about the work the district is doing to improve the health and academic success of its students. The Glow Stick Fun Run goal was to provide a fun evening which promoted a healthy, active lifestyle for all participants. And it was a really fun night. So we have some pictures of the kids that came along. Thank you, Stephanie, for taking pictures. She was our photographer. But the kids did have a ton of fun. And we gave out prizes, and everybody did seem to have a ton of fun. So those that helped sponsor, give prizes for the event was the City of Rock Springs Family Rec Center. The fire department came and escorted everyone once the race started. Iron Cowboy CrossFit donated, Equilibrium Fitness Studio. Christy Wheatley is the one that made the designs on our t-shirts. Sweetwater Medics was also there going along the route with the students. Stephanie, once again, thank you so much for all of your help with, it was a lot of fun. And then Daniel Krusky was there helping too. And Molly Steer. So those were some of the community members that were there helping that night. And Andy Bodenhagen too. I can't leave her out. She's the one that she helped get everything put together as well. And I know I'm thinking Sadie West is the one that helped get all of that. I know I'm probably forgetting some people. The committee is wonderful. Everybody helps out a ton. But anyway, that's one of the things we do. I don't know, that's just one thing we've done annually. I'm not sure what we're going to do this year, but we'll have meetings and keep you posted on that. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kelly has asked us to share with you the information that's going home to parents because a lot of the changes are happening at the high school. So here is a draft of the letter that will be available for parents tomorrow and Wednesday when they cut schedules, and it will go out on Facebook and Parent Square. We're figuring it out one at a time. But I know that we're kind of a big change, so we're trying to keep on top of things.
that's for your reference. Okay. 4B, use of facilities.
Chairman Jellicoe and members of the board, I can answer Steph's question to the communication plan mid-September. Angie's absolutely right. With us having to use the old system temporarily until it can turn over in September, the minute, a little bit before we're supposed to be able to turn over to the new system, we'll use Parent Square, we'll send letters home, we'll use Facebook, we'll use the appropriate channels in order to inform parents and train them or give them whatever information they need so that we can make that transition smoothly.
So in the meantime, we'll get directions out for My Payments Plus for our family so they can deposit for that. Well, good evening, Board of Trustees and Chairman Jellicoe and members of our community. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you once again about district facility use. As most of you know, back in June, we did a presentation for our community and for all of you about facility use. And we're missing one person tonight, and that's Scott, who's away for a little bit. But we're going to proceed, and what we would really like to share with you is not to go back through all of that information again. We know it's an action item on the agenda tonight, and so we wanted to share with you the nuts and bolts of that, and of course answer any questions that any of you may have. So the big ticket items type thing for it is, when we started this back in June, one of the things that we would all agree, it's really important to know that we want our kids to be involved, not just in school, but outside of school. And kids that stay involved and active in whatever the activity may be, it helps with their student achievement, their mental health, and it makes them be better citizens. They learn how to give back, work as a team. So the benefits are great. When we started this, if we go back to why are we doing all of this work, one thing that I have noticed for several years is there really has never been a systematic process about a use of facilities. And how we got to this point a little bit was previously the board gave a directive that we were to waive all facility use fees, and that was due to the up-and-coming system that would be on board. So we've worked through a lot of the glitches for that, and we know that we are just about ready to go for it. We've got September 1st as the rollout date to implement that, pending any decision that would come forward from our Board of Education this evening. Some things that we really wanted to make sure that we had was that our facilities, our schools, we spend a lot of time on school safety. And so we wanted to make sure that our schools were still safe in the evening as they were during the day, early morning. A lot of our schools, they never really shut down. Rock Springs High School is a great example. Farson is a great example. It's just a community place where people go. So there's lots of things that happen within those. We wanted to make sure that the process that we had was user-friendly, it was easy to do for everyone that was involved, and to be fair and consistent throughout within the policy. We know one of the things that's really important for us is that we want to be good community partners, along with all of the other agencies that we have in town, but Little Leagues and all of the other activities that our kids do. We want equal opportunity for our outlying schools, whether that be Farson or Wamsutter, as much as we can. So keeping all those things in mind really went into the why behind this. And then as we move forward, we want to share with you just a little bit about some of the terms that are going to make a difference if we revise anything for this evening or any actions that come before the board.
One thing that is a clear definition within the policy and the fee schedule is the difference between the events and the activities. Obviously, when we're holding events, it takes a lot more staff, equipment, time in order to put on the event. And it depends on the event, of course. But just like our high school theater, we have multiple people that have to work in order to run the lights, the equipment, and get everything going, versus some other things that may not require as much assistance. The activities fall with our Little League teams, a lot of our feeder programs, individuals using the facilities for practices, but any really non-school sponsored youth activity. The adult basketball leagues would fall under activities as well. So there is a difference between the two, and one does cost, it accrues costs far more significantly than the other. So again, we are going off of policy KG, KG-R, and then the fee schedule is the KG-X. They all lay out the rental fees and other costs, and the policy says it has to be reviewed, and we have to bring a proposal forth. One thing I really want to point out, though, that the rental fees and other costs to the district from the facilities used by the community are fully recovered, unless waived or reduced by the board or by designation of the superintendent. So whatever you guys decide to do, if you just waive it, or you have to be specific for us, is what I'm getting at. Okay. Then the insurance and liability, our policy does state that there has to be a proof or certificate of insurance in order to use our facilities. They have to basically relieve the district of any claims or liability. Almost all of our league sports have that. They're insured by the state or a higher entity and able to provide that insurance. The individual user waiver has to be completed by every individual using the district facilities, and that's online and part of the application, that they are waiving the district of any liability or fees. Are there any questions as far as the policies? I know, it was long last time. You guys learned it all. Your turn, Steph.
So here we just have an example. I just wanted to show you kind of in School Dude how the system looks. We're looking at the week of August 12th. You can just see that our facilities are used extensively. And if you look through the calendar on the web page on School Dude, it's always pretty full. So this last time we gave you the June picture. This is the August picture as things start picking back up.
I see down here Little League football practice. I assume that's the city Little League using facilities at
The City of Rock Springs Little League football practice on the 12th?
Yeah, I think there's a couple days out there.
Probably.
Those are various schools. That's not the high school.
No, this is a look at the district for this week. And then there's, on some of them there's more if you go into it a little bit further, but yeah.
Okay.
This is looking at the whole district.
So for those of you who don't remember what the cost, what the charges, are accounting for, the facility use fee itself accounts for the supplies, emergency support. Something, one of the things people don't think of is snows. We have to call crews in. Crews have to throw sand, salt, things like that. Utilities and that, to be honest with you, like I told you last time, we really haven't had the time to go through and figure out what the actual utility cost is. But when Mr. Duncan comes back, I'm sure that's something we can look at. Long-term maintenance. Who pays for the long-term maintenance of the facilities? Other than normal use. Then we have to call staff in. We have, in certain cases, the auditorium theater groups have to come in, set up, tear down, clean up, all that kind of thing. All those kind of things that go in that people really don't take into consideration that somebody has to pay for. And custodial and support staff. The final cleanup, lock up, walk around, security checks, things like that. When we talk about an average event crew, one of the problems that I brought to the board, one of the issues that we have is really tough hiring help. And it's even tougher when they're part-time people. So one of the things that we discussed was, instead of having 2 full-time people and the rest part-time people, is including another full-time person. So that would bring the staff up to 3 full-time people and 2 part-time people. Then we kind of did an estimate. We actually were as high as $28 an hour and a little bit lower than the $21.57. What that is where it says estimated wage including salary and benefits. That's kind of a compromise that we did internally, because if you get a first-year custodial staff, they're going to probably make less than the $21.57. But the chances of putting that first-year person on a facility, is a little more difficult to do, because they're going to be at various schools. So you try to hire somebody or transfer somebody with a little more experience from one of the other schools, one of the other crews. Sometimes what happens is we get somebody who has more than 2 or 3 years experience. They might have 5 years experience, so they're actually making $26 an hour or $25 an hour. So we compromise on the $21.57. For those of you if there were any questions on this, what we basically did was we have 6 schools that are our prime schools that are used constantly. Mr. Portillo, our assistant director, he pulled up our historic accounting for what it costs for supplies for those schools on an annual basis. Then most of the schools, the gyms average roughly 15% of the school footprint, so that's how we came up with the $12,645. Then we figured out per day, and then we went down to 30% of the time is actually spent in the gyms from non-district use. So then we took that, we divided the $15 by 6, because there's 6 facilities. That's what we started out with. And that's where we came up with $2.50 per day. That is just for supplies. That does not include wages. Any questions?
So as the policy guides us to in KG, it mentions that there needs to be a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. And so a couple of the things that we went through based on the numerical data that we had, the current policy on KG-X, it's in the red circle over there on the right. It currently says about $50 an hour. In the next slide, Steph will walk us through about the recommendation. We can change that for $22 an hour, and then we wanted to show what would be the effects of that if we did. Also, a couple of the other things, like I mentioned, beginning this on September 1st, 2019. And then also, underneath the $22 an hour, you'll see on the board agenda, when it comes to the recommendation for KG-X, it also has for activities after 7 o'clock and on weekends for the $22 an hour per employee. And then all events charged for all hours. And in the earlier slide, we talked about an event, such as a tournament, recital, those kinds of things. And then examples up on the top, that's also part of KG-X. You'll notice that there's some red line through there. We wanted to clean that up just a little bit. Talking about examples would be setup, cleanup, equipment use, technical support, and then also that the organization will be responsible for the repair and the damages and the replacement of stolen property or supplies. What we've got here is some examples, some scenarios about what that cost may look like.
So this was just an example of, we actually looked at 4 different event uses that we had in the system. So we looked at Youth Team 1 and we kind of just played with the scenario and the time. So if, if all of the times were before 7 on that top chart, that shows that Youth Team 1, that charge would actually just be $500. And this was for 5 months of use. Youth Team 2, it would be the $250. And that was for using the, 2 days a week, 42 uses over those 5 months for an hour and a half. And then we also took, Youth Team 3 was 4 days a week, 84 uses over the 5 months for 3 hours, but one of those hours would be after 7 p.m. So that at that point you would have the custodial cost, the $22 an hour that was the recommendation. So then you can look again, if all of the practice hours were after 7 with the same amount of uses, that does jump that up, but it is significantly lower than when we were looking at the $50 an hour.
So, like we mentioned, the next steps really is board action for this board, whatever the pleasure of this board may be, so that we can actually get a decision in and get this system up and moving on September 1st. It's all automated. Stephanie and her department, they've done a great job getting this ready to go. We've just got this piece out there about fees. And to be honest with you, I've kind of watched it for at least 10 years and waiting for definitive answer. So we're really looking forward to however that may be, to getting that ready to go and up and running. And then, of course, with Stephanie and Scott's help, we'll make sure that we can do debit cards or credit cards or however that decision is.
I just have one last little thing. Please. Sorry, I just wanted to let you know that we actually rolled the reservation piece out to the public. So all of the folks who had put requests in throughout the summer, or since I think we went back to January, at last time I spoke, we had created their accounts. We were going to do some training. We had the chunky crayon directions that we had created. So we sent all the emails out to the public to let them know and change the links on our website. So they are using School Dude, and it gives them a little bit more power and flexibility because they can actually see the availability of the spaces that they're looking at. So just not the fee part. We're just having them make their own reservations through School Dude.
Any questions?
Any questions? Mr. Patolo.
One of my questions is the idea of scheduling. Have we noted any kind of patterns? One of my fears was that the early adopters would say, I'm going to schedule Rock Springs Junior High from now until 2027, and I'm going to do it every night. Did any of that happen? Was that a false fear on my part?
No, we had put in most of everything that they had requested was already in the system. And I will say that I have not had an opportunity to run any reports or check that. And I know Dan hasn't been doing the fee assessment because we're waiting to see, the outcome of this. But I haven't seen anything. And the principals and the secretaries check to make sure it's a real thing and not unreasonable. And then the principals have the approval before they're allowed to reserve the building for that.
Principals are pretty good about controlling that because it's at more of a building level. So if they're not liking a pattern, then they'll control it so that it's equitable for use.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Thompson.
I just have a question. Do we have any idea on the use, how many teams are doing the before 7 practice versus how many are doing after?
We haven't pulled anything on that.
I don't know.
I haven't actually pulled any. This time of year is a little bit hectic, and I have not looked at any reports for facility use. I do know that some folks, after the last board meeting, did go in, and if it was available, they adjusted some of their times to try to be more after 7, but I met with all the secretaries and the principals, and I haven't heard of anything.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Jackman.
Last year in June, we talked a lot about indoor versus outdoor. You talked a lot about gym facilities. Is it only the indoor facilities that get facility fees charged?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Unless it's an event.
Right.
Yes.
We do track the fields through this. They can reserve the field, but yeah, there's no charge associated for that.
Mr. Patolo.
A follow-up question on, we're in a situation, I think, where we're talking about charging people to use our gyms, but I don't know if we've looked inwardly yet. Is it our intention that when Rock Springs High School basketball is in the off-season, that they're going to have to secure a time for them to have a gym also and have to pay those fees?
I can talk to that.
Well, any school-sponsored event would not, anything related with the coaches or the school-sponsored things, there's no fees. And actually, I can say Rock Springs High School for sure, wherever Tom is, Dina goes through and puts all of that in the calendar, loads all of that ahead of time so that they have their first priority. The teams get the reservations, but there's no fee for a school. Yeah, there's no fee for a school sponsored.
Because there are events.
And we have to have it scheduled because, for instance, when we come in and finish the floors, we even schedule. I mean, everybody's got to be singing from the same sheet of music. Otherwise, you have, somebody brings in a camp during the off season, and this has happened to me not here but in another district, and everybody shows up from out of state and they have no place to go because that week was the week that we decided to strip the floors. So it does work best if no matter who they are, even if it's in school and it's their school, if they still schedule so that everybody knows what's going on.
IT will even reserve spaces in the summer when we're working like in a library or something like that.
And that's common with everything.
And I'm confident that we can manage that as far as scheduling that. My question is it fair? Because we're saying to our high school kids, at 16, you get to do this for free. But at 13, we're saying you get to pay for this. And that's my question, because you could argue that the youth basketball teams are our kids too, but they're just not in high school yet. And I just didn't know if we thought all the way through that process as far as fairness goes. So that's why I asked that question.
Any other questions?
Chairman Jellicoe, just a comment and a quick response to Mr. Batolo's thought. I think that is the dilemma that we continually face. What are those guidelines going to be for that fairness and equity for those pieces? And as a person myself that was doing use of facilities for several years, trying to manage that system when the guidelines are really gray, it is very, very difficult. And you can see the amount of use that we have in our facilities as a whole. Our schools are beautiful, and we welcome people in those. It's just how do we balance that whole system to make that work within those guidelines of fairness? That really is the question, and that's what's coming before our board.
Matt.
Mr. Jackson.
Ms. Tolman, on the registration, is this a youth activity versus adult activity?
Yes, we actually build all the organizations out ahead of time. So there's some that we have MOUs, so it doesn't even bring up the fee schedule if we have the MOU. Yep, we track youth, adult, internal and external also.
Okay.
Madam Chair, one other comment that I would like to present in front of the board. As you can see, the last couple of months, when we presented this in June, there's a lot of information that goes with use of facilities on here as a whole. And I think, having a decision, a clear guideline for that would be very good, not only for the district, but for our community. I could not imagine rehashing a facility recommendation fee every single year and putting, organizations and district staff, our principals. I mean, there's just so much that goes through for this. So one thing in the policy on KG is it mentions about bringing it forward as feasible or as necessary. And I think if we have good guidelines on that, not bringing that forward for a while would really be a good thing.
Do we have an estimated, we're not doing this for purposes of revenue. I want to be very clear about that. But do we have an estimate of the monies that would come in based on what we know now regarding implementation at the $22? Do we have any guesses?
The closest thing we have is just looking at the scenarios that we set, but we didn't go in and look at any other
like a total?
Any other examples or a total.
Okay.
Dan, how many facility use requests do you have waiting yet to be processed as of right now?
And as of right now, close to 400.
Waiting.
Any other questions? Thank you. We're now to the communications and correspondence or public comment. If a member of the public initiates specific complaints or charges against an employee in order to protect the employee's rights to privacy and due process, the board will only hear those complaints or charges in closed session. The board encourages concerned individuals to file complaints using the appropriate district complaint procedure and appropriate forms, which can be obtained from the district's website. As per policies B, D, D, H, and KD, please limit your comments to the board to one time. So public comment is now open. Please state your name and any organization that you may represent.
I'm Heather Anderson. I'm with Rock Springs Girls Softball. I'm also with Rock Springs Girls Youth Basketball, the Little League program. We would fall under that number 3 option, I think it was, so it'd be like $6,000, assuming all of our practice were after the 7 p.m. mark. That would be pushing about $300 more in registration fees onto our kids, so it'd be paying about $350. So, like Mr. Batolo said, you're looking at them hoping to be in high school at that sport level. You charge that to the Little Leagues, they're not going to be there. You won't have the sports at the upper ages. So it's a huge impact onto our kids. I can understand the need and requirement for the money to subsidize these types of things, but there's a community aspect I think that we all need to consider as well. And especially if it's a public, not private entity. It's not me, I'm throwing my 5 favorite girls to go play basketball together. This is open to the public and for the public. So I urge you to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment?
I have a couple of comments, and so I'll change hats in the middle. First of all, my name is Mark Cholak, engaged participant. I wonder on the fee schedule, since, as Ms. Batolo has said, this is more of a way for the groups that are using these facilities not to pay the total cost for using the facilities, but to kind of reduce the burden on the district. And with that in mind, what I heard at the June meeting and also at the July meeting from when the swim club was in here, they're going to lose members if they have to raise their registration fees by a whole heck of a lot in order for kids to participate to be able to cover that fee. The way we have this set up, if I had a team of 5 basketball players, they would be paying the exact same fee for the facilities as if I had an organization that had 100 kids. So you're comparing 5 registration fees to the club itself versus 100. I wonder why we didn't structure these fees based on number of participants rather than just a flat fee that applies to everybody. And maybe that's an idea that could still be explored. Okay, I'm going to change hats now. I am Mark Cholak, SEA president and teacher at Rock Springs High School. I want to thank the board and Mr. Celeroli. I see that we are considering some work on the windows at the high school. Thank you. That gives me a really warm feeling in more ways than one. And also, I wanted to stand and just kind of recognize Ms. Sarah Mosby. In the last couple of things, one of the things in this district that has gotten better from reports on the ground is school lunch. And also reports from my wife who eats school lunch. I don't eat school lunch. You guys don't sell Diet Mountain Dew, so sorry. But anyway, those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Ray. I have two students that go to Desert View. One is a kindergartner and one is a second grade. I live in Superior, Wyoming, and I have concerns about the bus schedule for the students who live in Point of Rocks, Thayer Junction, and Superior. The high schoolers and the elementary students are going to be all riding on one bus. And because of this, the elementary students are going to be basically stuck on the bus for an extended period of time. For instance, if someone has a kindergartner and they live in Point of Rocks, their student, who is a kindergartner, will be on the bus for 2 hours. And travel time from Point of Rocks to Rock Springs is about 45 minutes for regular travel. For riding a bus, it could take about an hour. So my kids who live in Superior, their pickup time is 6:19 in the morning. So they would be on the bus for an hour and 36 minutes because they get dropped off at Desert View at 7:55 a.m. So I'm just concerned about these young children, you know, being on the bus. What are they going to do for these extended amounts of time? And I did speak with Joe on the phone earlier today, and then I also spoke with him before the meeting started. And he has some different ideas and stuff, but I wanted to bring it to you guys so you would all know that there is parent concern, people who live in Point of Rocks, Thayer Junction, and Superior over the bus schedule. Do you have any questions for me or?
Anyone?
And when I did speak with Joe, he said that the problem is they don't have enough bus drivers, and then there's also not enough buses. But maybe some things can be moved around, and some students in Rock Springs could somehow take a longer bus. So kids that are in the rural areas won't be stuck on the bus for so long. For instance, like Superior, to get from Superior to Rock Springs is 30 minutes. And if you're taking the bus, 45 minutes would be a good bus ride. You know, you have to get on the bus, you have to stop and pick other kids up and then stop at the school. So, you know, some of these kids are stuck on the bus for an extra hour or an extra 45 minutes. So that is my concern.
Does Joe have any solutions?
I'm not sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Joe, do you have any comments?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent McGovern, Ms. Ray's times are pretty accurate. I figured it out also. It is about a 56, 57 minute travel time from Sage in front at 6:19 for her students. The other kids, it's another 40 minutes on top of that. So after you take out the 57 minutes of travel, you're looking at about a 7:30 or 37 minute route time, which isn't beyond reason in the grand scheme of things. The concern I have is that they do from the junior high drop off is at 7:10, and we can't drop the kids off at Desert View until 7:55. We'd probably get there about 7:30, so the kids do have to sit on the bus for 25 minutes, which K4 is kind of an extended period of time. At this point, I don't have the staffing in order to have two buses go out there, so that's the issue. Once I get the staffing, and we will get the staffing, it's going to take a little bit. We do have people training in the pipe. We have quite a few people that we have hired and we're going to hire. So we can take a look at that again in the future. My concern is the type of bus going out there and the number of students. I have
looked at it to see who's where, what number of students are there at that point in time. But if I have to send a small bus out there at a Class A for a couple students, I would be willing to do that if I have a bus available. And I could look at it because we talked about it, Ms. Ray, we could probably do it just in the mornings, and in the afternoon the bus ride isn't that bad. But if we could get a bus out there, a smaller bus for just a couple students, I would be willing to do that. But if I have to send a 60-passenger bus out there because I don't have a small bus available, I don't know if that would be feasible or not. But I am certainly willing to take a look at it and reshuffle that route if at all possible, because I am concerned about that also. That's an awful long time for those kids to be on the bus. So we will take a look at it. Any questions?
Mrs. McGovern?
Mrs. Jellicoe, one of the things, Joe, that route out there, I agree with everything that you're saying. It's always been really a dilemma on how we balance that for the kids, because previously, if there were two different routes, the concern when we did that before was the age of the students. And so if there were siblings on there, then they were riding two different buses. That was a long time. And if you've got a little one on there, you know, in kindergarten through 4th grade, if they didn't have anybody else to ride with, you know, that's a long time for them to be alone. And so we've kind of worked through that. We've seen that before too. I don't know if there's the perfect situation for her dilemma. I'm sorry for the dilemma that she's got. Trying to make that work on there. But that was one of the reasons I'm glad to hear you say that we moved that to have one route like that to balance that if there's a way to make that work. But it really was about having these little ones travel alone, and when the roads, you know, get bad and the parents are worrying not about one bus, but they're worrying about two. There's just a lot that goes into that, and trying to make sure that our parents didn't have that sense of worry about, you know, their kiddos and making sure they got them safe.
Thank you.
So what I heard you say is that you're going to take a look at it.
Once we get the staffing, yeah, I'm certainly going to take a look at it. I don't have any problems with that at all. We'll just kind of deconstruct it and put it back together again. If we can make it work, I'd be more than happy to make it work.
Thank you. Mrs. McGovern?
Madam Chair, one other quick comment too. It was brought up in public comment as a recommendation for the facility use schedule to go and change the way it was reassessed to the number of participants that attended an event. The previous KG-X on the facility use salary schedule used to do that. And before it was revised at the bottom of it in 2013, prior to that time, that is exactly what that facility use schedule was. The difficult thing for that was when people filled out their application to use one of the schools, it's too hard to monitor. You know, if you're listing down as a coach, it's completely the honor system. So if you're listing, 25 kids coming in and you're being assessed a fee per child, unless you want to be the facility use police, it was really hard to manage that. And where do you break off? Is it 25 as a full group? Is it 50 that was a full group? So when we tried that before, so it's kind of like the whole hamster wheel going around and around. But we had tried that before, and it was equally as frustrating. Thank you.
Further public comment? Further public comment?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent McGovern. My name is Thomas Jasmine, Assistant Principal Activities Director at Rock Springs High School, and I just want to take the opportunity. I know in the past, in the spring, I had a presentation about our first annual Tiger Proud fundraising event, and what I'd like to do is just kind of bring some more information about that. It is actually happening this weekend. It's going to be the 16th and 17th out at the Sweetwater Events Complex. It's going to be from noon to 5 on Friday, and then it's going to be all day on Saturday. And I just want to really kind of open up to the community and let them know about the event and come out and see our students, to see our kids, see what they're doing, see what they're a part of, get to know what the organizations are that we have as part of Rock Springs High School, and let's really kind of build a community and come together, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to raise a little bit of funds, but most importantly, recognize our businesses and our community for what we do. Really excited about it, and I just wanted to make sure and communicate that and offer the opportunity to come out and check it out. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Further public comment? Going once?
I just have something really quick to say. I don't know how you do the podium, but I just
Please.
want to invite everyone here to come and look at the salads. There's 2 gourmet salads and some wraps and the yogurt parfaits. So I just want everyone to, see what we're actually serving, because I think a lot of times you don't actually see it, I don't know. I think the staff is doing a great job. We catered an event with salads last week, and everyone really liked them. So we've had a lot of positive feedback. So I really encourage staff to try them as well, since they are in the vending machines. It's not just for kids. Staff can also pay for it with debit, credit card, or get a PIN number from the state.
Thank you. Further public comment? Public comment is closed. Okay, we're on item 6, general board business. Approval of policy KG-X, the facility use fee schedule. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I have a motion.
Mr. Mickelson?
I move we approve policy KG-X, the facility use fee schedule, waiving custodial and staff hourly rate fees only for youth activities and organizations, and as provided by extant memorandums of understanding MOUs with governmental organizations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Would you read that again, Mr. Mickelson?
I move we approve policy KG-X, the facility use fee schedule, waiving custodial and staff hourly rate fees only for youth activities and organizations, and as provided by extant memorandums of understanding MOUs with governmental organizations.
Thank you. Discussion. Mr. Mickelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I get a little frustrated.
You need to read it. Do you have a copy of it?
With this conversation, I've talked to some folks. There's a fairly large club that spans both Rock Springs and Green River, that their plan, pending approval of it as it's written, is to just pull out of Rock Springs completely and only be in Green River. I know there are lots of folks who have individual basketball teams because being a cohesive unit was too challenging, and that's not the district's issue, that's their issue. My family is paying better than $800 to register my 2 kids for one sport. One of them is 10 and one of them is 4. It's expensive, these things cost money, but I do hear the need to be consistent with the activities that serve as feeders for our athletics when we get to junior high and high school. And I think that in the motion that I made, my thought process is to provide that balance. They're still having to pay the facility use fee. If they have an event, they're still paying so that it's late. But for those day-to-day practices, waiving that, I think, provides the best balance between the public good and the district's interests. Although I also see the wisdom of saying it is what it is, try to find some resources or work together or do something different. But for us to move forward and put this in place and actually do it, I think this is a moderate place to start. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Hay?
Yeah, my question to your motion. So the clubs still have to pay for their practices, but they have to pay for their events?
So they'll pay, sorry, Madam Chair, they'll pay the monthly fee regardless. It's just the custodial fee. They would not pay it for their activities. They would only pay it for events. And then the adults would just have to pay for everything because you're going to figure it out.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go with it. I feel that our kids shouldn't have to pay anything anywhere, and unless they have an event that's taking place on a weekend, was my idea. Because we do have to have the payments for the custodians to come in. But I was hoping that we could do something like, let the kids be free with their activity and let the adults pay. So I don't know how that falls into your motion that you made.
So my motion, Madam Chair, would still require the youth activities and organizations to pay the monthly fee. And just from the standpoint that if you're using our facility 16 times in a month, $200 is not that big of a burden, even for a group of 5. But.
Other comments?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Patolo.
I misunderstood your motion, Max. I seconded a motion that I now realize that I don't agree with. And Lenny, thank you for bringing that to my attention.
You can still vote no.
Yeah. Okay. Being consistent is important to me, but the thing for me is significant other adults. Everything you read about the kids being successful is when they have significant other adults in their lives. Parents are obvious, that's a significant adult, but these activities, and not only sports, I hope we have more activities that come to us and ask to use our facilities. I hope we have academic competitions. I hope we have more opportunities for kids on the academic side also. But I just think that this is a good thing for us to do, to keep our kids busy and to put them around good people. So thank you, Lenny, for clarifying that.
Mr. Jackman?
Madam Chair. So as it stands, I have a tough time any facility use fee at all for the youth especially. We've made it a point as a district and as a board to emphasize that these extracurriculars are important for our students' success, and raising that barrier to entry is harder. We've gone to the 8-period day at the high school to get more, not extracurriculars, elective classes, because we know that helps student graduation. We've gone to giving faculty excused absences to kids that are not in school sports, and we really emphasize that, and I think raising that barrier to entry, we're talking out both sides of our mouth. So I'm opposed to any fees that charge the youth. The adults we can discuss. I wouldn't be opposed to a cancellation fee for the youth sports. I think it, like a no-show fee. I know we've had a lot of problems with sports booking the gym and not using it. So if we had a fee for them not showing up at all, period, without notifying anybody, would prevent those teams from booking it every single day all year long. But as it stands, I can't support that.
Mr. Mickelson?
Madam Chair, I guess from my perspective, our facility use fee schedule for just the facility use fee is $25, $50, or if you're using it 11 or more times a month, $100 a month. That's a really low level of buy-in. And I go back to when Medicare and Medicaid started charging a copay of $2, and people not only showed up more consistently, but they took more ownership of their health because they have some skin in the game. And so it for my part, I'm very comfortable saying, hey, if you're going to be in our gym 10 times this month, we're going to need $50, because that is significantly lower. What is it? A family pass to the rec is $90 a month. It's a very, very low bar, and it, if nothing else, hopefully will give them some incentive to treat the facilities respectfully, because they are having to make a personal investment. If we were going to say $500 or something a month, yeah, that's a big barrier. But if you have even a group of 5 kids playing basketball, $100 to use our facilities 20 times in a month is a pretty low level of buy-in.
Further comments from the board? Mrs. Thompson?
Chairman Delco. And to me, I look at it as, I mean, I have kids in sports as well, and you pay the registration fees, and you're in guitar lessons and everything else, and you pay fees for that. And it does add up. And I mean, we're talking $25, $50, and $100, but that adds up too. And if you're passing that on to the kids' families who are already quite possibly struggling, they might drop out of that sport. I feel at this point I can't support the motion as it is. I would be more in support of waiving the fees for the youth activity and organizations, the special events youth, and the custodial and staff costs for the youth only, with keeping the adult activities and organizations and the special event adults. That's what I would like to see.
Further comments? I want to add, as I have traveled around the state the last 2 or 3 months, I have asked superintendents, I have asked board trustees what their policies are regarding the use of their facilities. And it is very widely held that if the activities or the sports, whichever it is, involve students within the district, that they waive those fees. So many times, they are feeder programs for our high school sports programs. They can also be other programs, other activities. And so what I gather from them and how I feel, are we shooting ourselves in the foot when we try to assess fees to our own kids, even though they're not at the high school has their activities, the junior high has their set activities, but just because you're not of that age, are we hampering future students in what they want to do because of a fee schedule? And so I too find it difficult to assess fees to our students moving forward. Now, I do believe that if an event is being held at which they are charging admission, that maybe there could be an exception there. That if they're charging admission, then they should probably. But my guess is that probably might be on a Friday night, Saturday kind of thing more than typically. So I think there's some room for us as a board to look at some things. I know that this action is due tonight, so I think we have a motion on the floor. It was seconded. So if there is further discussion, we'll call for the question and then move forward from there. Okay, how's that sound to everyone? Okay, all in favor of the motion. Does anyone need clarification of the motion as it stands now? Okay. All in favor of the motion as Mr. Mickelson?
No,
you're voting. You're voting. Okay.
My sad, lonely.
Okay. All in favor of the motion as it has been introduced by Mr. Mickelson, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Nay. Okay, so that motion is defeated. Okay, so we need another motion, if that is the will of the body.
Madam Chair, before I make a motion, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Farson and Wampside, how are those fees assessed? The exact same way as the rest of the district?
They would be.
They would be?
They would, unless the board chose
Correct,
other.
otherwise.
Right.
Because I'm curious, like in Wampside, the school is the meeting. I mean, that is the central building. Same thing in Farson.
That's what I was going to bring up. That's kind of like, it's our community center. We have one, but, we get charges of there, so we'd rather go to the school, which has the gym, which is kind of like our rec center there. So I wondered how the board would feel on that, for both areas. That's kind of the only thing we have to use. So I didn't know the pleasure of the board on that.
Okay, that may impact a motion.
So, as it stands, there's a lot of information out there that we haven't quite uncovered yet. I know we need a decision, but I think there's a lot more discussion that needs to go on. I would make a motion that we pass the facility use schedule as it stands and waive all fees until the board deems it necessary to revisit, or the superintendent.
You would waive event fees also,
I
or
would-
just activity fees?
I would waive everything. We would gather the data for how much we would collect for the expenses, but yeah, it's kind of what we're doing now. But we as a board could revisit whether, I mean, if it costs $25 to use the Parsons Community Center, we could match $25 or whatever.
And that's different. It's like, that's like apples and oranges. You know, but there is no gym of the community center.
Right.
So you really can't compare
Okay.
the two of them. I just think that we should make a motion to waive the fees for the youth. Like we
Okay, so was yours the motion?
It was kind of looking for nods and
Okay, but,
approval as a board.
okay, I'm just trying to clarify here, 'cause I don't want to, I don't like, okay, so you said you would like to move, but I don't believe there was a second.
Correct.
Okay, so we don't have a second there, so do we have another motion that we might have a second on?
I move that we approve the facility use fee schedule tonight, but we would waive the youth activities and organization fees. We would waive the special events youth fees, and we would waive the custodial and staff costs for youth events.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we pass the KG-X, but waive the fees for youth activities and organizations, youth special events, and the custodial and staff costs for youth. Okay. Mr. Mickelson.
Madam Chair, I have two comments. The first, what about the memorandums of understanding with governmental organizations? Because they're not addressed here, so are they addressed somewhere else? And then more generally on principle, Wyoming has been very fortunate for a very, very, very long time to be able to bear the cost of many extracurricular activities for families. As we're going forward, this is an area that realistically parents and families need to either prioritize it and get it together and pay for it, or access the resources that are out there to help pay for it and not ask for the district to fully subsidize those activities. And I get that that is not, what is it? Tonight's unpopular opinion is that they're important, they matter, and if that's true, then as families, you need to prioritize and figure out and access the resources and do those things. So I'm not certainly in favor of waiving all of the costs and would like to know about those memorandums. Thank you.
Go ahead and address the
Sure. Mrs. Jellicoe, fellow members of the board. On the memorandums of understanding that we currently have, if we see a facility use request that comes in from the City of Rock Springs, Western Wyoming Community College, BOCES, whether that is for students or for adults, then all of those fees are waived for that. They don't get charged. They don't charge us as well. We use classroom space at WWC all the time and are very thankful for that. So that's typically how that agreement works, whether it's for kids or for adults.
Okay, another option, another thing to consider, I think, is the profit versus nonprofit. And you know, if an organization is doing something for profit, then I think it has a different status than many of our youth groups that are nonprofits. So I think that is something that may need to be considered as well. Mrs. Bolton?
Thank you, Chairman Jellicoe and members of the board. There's actually a rule that if you're a for-profit business, you can't use the district facilities as a place for you to run basically our for-profits or for businesses. I don't know any that we have that aren't.
I guess my clarification for profit and nonprofit is if admission fees are being charged, like you have an event where admission fees are being charged,
We have most nonprofit groups, though, if they're running an event, just due to the cost that they usually do charge an admission.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Even if it's nonprofit. But for-profit businesses cannot use our facilities to run their business.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor to, and seconded, to pass KG-X and directing the superintendent to waive all youth activities and organization fees, all special events for youth fees, and custodial and staff costs for youth groups. That's what we have. And that is with the understanding of honoring any memorandums of understanding and those kinds of things that are already, the district is already a part of. Okay, so that is the motion on the floor. Okay, any further discussion?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Jackman?
Max, I do agree with you on the potential for the states in the budget cuts, especially with the Black Jewel mine closing. We have no idea how in February that's going to affect us. So I think it's important that we have access to the facility schedule so we're able to, if we have to and we're desperate, we can implement it. But I just think, yeah, the kids have got to be, we can't be charging for the kids especially. And I'm not going to, but I almost want to propose exempting Desert School and Farson from the adults as well. But with you making the motion, I think you're okay. That's what it is.
We'll deal with it.
Mr. Mickelson?
Madam Chair, if I could have a point of personal privilege really quickly. Mr. Jackman, may I have a refund on my 4-year-old's RSSA fee that I had to pay for her to play, please?
I'm not part of the RSSA.
Involved with them. So could you talk to them and get me my registration fee back?
Yeah, I'll just send them a FedEx note.
My point being, Madam Chair, everywhere you go, this is a part of participating. It's a part of the lessons that you take out of those activities and organizations. And I think we are, with this particular motion, sending a bad message to our kids. Thank you.
Any further comments? Are we ready for a vote? Okay, all in favor of the motion? Does anybody need the motion clarified further? Okay. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay, the motion passes. Okay, we got it? Okay, item number 7, the treasurer's report. Mr. Jackman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as it stands for the general fund, we had a total of $11,022,278.51 in the bank at the beginning of the day. We had warrants of $4,009,694.99, along with some transfers. Our subtotal for the month was $7,915,504.35. We voided a bunch of checks, which I'm required to report. Ending cash balance, $7,918,257.11. For the school lunch program, we had a cash balance of $238,238.23, which works out nicely. We had warrants written of $0, and we had an ending balance of $243,141.49. For the Head Start, we had a combined beginning balance of $187,217.95. We cleared warrants of $132,842.68. We had an ending balance of $55,155.44.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion passes. Item number 8, the warrants. Mr. Jackman.
District warrants from July 17, 2019 to August 7, 2019 were check number 130280 through 130826, a total amount of $2,363,660.69. There's several first bank card transactions over $1,000 or more, which you can all review. I had a conflict on transaction 130453.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I also want to declare a conflict on warrant 130422. Any other discussion? All in favor of approving the warrants, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 9, the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are matters about which the board has governing policies, implementation of which is delegated to the superintendent. They will be enacted in one motion in the order listed below. There will be no discussion of these items prior to the time the Board of Trustees votes on the motion unless members of the board request specific items to be held and discussed separately and/or removed from this section. Minutes. Item 9A, approval of the minutes from the July 17th, 2019 workshop. 9B, approval of the minutes from the July 17th, 2019 regular board meeting and public hearing. 9C, approval of the minutes from the July 17th, 2019 budget hearing. 9D, approval of the minutes from the July 17th, 2019 executive session. Excuse me. Finance. 9E, approval of the fuel bids for the 2019-2020 school year. Personnel. 9F, approval of personnel recommendations. Technology. 9G, approval to renew image learning. 9H, approval to renew School Dude Solutions. General board business. 9I, approval of the purchase of library books, equipment, and supplies from the Wyoming State Library. Facilities. 9J, post approval of the bids for the Rock Springs High School Phase 1 window replacement.
Hold.
9K, post approval of the quote to move a double-wide mobile home teacherage from Wamsutter to Farson. 9L, post approval of the quote to move a mobile home teacherage from space number 23 at the Farson Crossroads Mobile Home Park to the school property in Farson. 9M, post approval of the quote to move a mobile home teacherage from space number 32 at the Farson Crossroads Mobile Home Park to the school property in Farson. 9N, post approval of the change order for the storefront phase of the Rock Springs High School's security vestibule and system/structural modification for classrooms project. 9O, post approval of the quote for the Tectum ceiling panels for Rock Springs High School. So, is there a motion to approve all items except 9J?
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion passes. Item 9J, post approval of the bids for the Rock Springs High School Phase 1 window replacement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dan, I'm just curious why we're going post-approval on this, just the way the timing worked out for the bids to get it done.
Yeah, summer.
Yeah, I get you. No.
I already signed the contract.
No, I got you. I was just... That's what I thought, but I just wanted to double check that it wasn't something catastrophic. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion for 9J? It's been moved.
Second.
And seconded for to approve 9J. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 10, 2019-2020 handbooks. 10A, approval of the handbook changes for the 2019-2020 school year. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
And seconded. Discussion. Any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Batolo?
Just for purposes of letting individuals know, can we talk a little bit about some of the changes that happened in the handbooks? I think that there's a pretty significant change, which I support, by the way, with cell phones.
Yes. I think it's like be prepared, so give me just 1 minute. Lots of papers. And we will roll this out pending board approval. And the handbooks will go out tomorrow pending board approval. But yes, you're right. Upon talking to the SROs and just our principals and the excessive amount of behaviors that, especially at the secondary level, continue to rise, and a lot, most, have to do with social media, cell phones, and then on top of that, the lack of engagement that is occurring in the classroom. So as I've asked questions, the principals have jumped in to say, well, even if the cell phone's on the desk, turned over, every time the student hears that buzz, even if you've told them that they can't touch it, they're no longer engaged in the class. They want to know what their friend's saying, what's going on, or, you know, their thoughts are just somewhere else. So in discussing with the principals and working through this, we do have cell phone procedures that will, we already have an electronic signaling device policy, JFCN, which we did put in the handbook, and it does basically give us authority to put procedures in to limit device use. And so we are adding cell phone procedures to the K-12 handbooks. And so for in-town, K-8, I'm going to read it if that's okay, it's pretty short. Sweetwater School District 1 recognizes the importance of communication and collaboration and provides devices for students to be productive in the classroom. Students in grades K through 8 will be permitted to bring personal telecommunication devices on school property. To prevent disruption and distractions to the learning environment and to keep students focused on academics, students will not be permitted to possess or use personal telecommunication devices during school hours. Possession and use of the devices will be limited as follows. Students will be required to turn off any device and keep such device in their school lockers or other school-designated locations before the morning bell rings until school is released for the day. So honestly, this isn't a new practice for K-6. So if a student brings a cell phone K-4, it goes in their backpack in the hallway. So we tell them, we are not responsible for that. I'm glad you pointed at that because I'm going to bring it up. And 5, 6, it stays in their backpack in the locker. It's not allowed in the classroom. But this year, 7, 8, they will be staying in their lockers. They are not allowed to have their devices throughout the day. And when I say telecommunication devices, I mean any kind of device, smartwatch, a cell phone, anything that has a signaling communication, basically capability to it. So the use of any device or camera capable of capturing images is strictly prohibited in classrooms, locker rooms, or restroom areas at all times. So students need to quit taking selfies in the bathroom. Those aren't our problem though. It's the other stuff that's reported. If a student needs to make an emergency phone call or a parent or guardian needs to contact a student during the day, the student shall make or receive such phone call at the school office, like we all used to. For 9-12, it's a little bit different. Students will be permitted, it's basically all the same thing except that they will be permitted to also have it during passing period and lunch at the 9-12 level. They will not be able to have any of these devices on them during class time. It will either go into a pocket holder thing, or it's shut off, and most of them carry their backpacks in their backpack and put away. And the key is the devices will be shut off. If they need to make a phone call during class, they can go to the office as well. Parents can leave messages at the office. I think it's become loud and clear that we need to really make some changes to get engagement up and focus on our academia. So procedures and violations. One thing that's very clear in our policy is the school district is not responsible for lost or broken devices. So when students choose to bring these things to school, if they're lost or broken, it is not our responsibility. If a student K-12 violates this procedure, for a first violation, a warning will be issued by a teacher or other staff member, and the school office will be notified of the warning. Any violation will result in the device being confiscated and sent to the school's office, and it will be returned as follows. For the first offense, a student may pick up the device at the end of the school day. For subsequent offenses, parents or legal guardians must pick up the device from a building administrator. It cannot be the secretary. So if the building administrators are in admin meetings all day and the school closes down and they're not available to give back the cell phone, they will not get it until the next day after school. And we will be going over these very carefully with the students. We'll see how many violations we have, but yeah, that's what we're doing. If this kid is insubordinate, then I guess the parent can come pick up the student and the cell phone from the school. We will have recordings to mark up any damages on any devices among picking it up, and they will be locked up in the office in a secure location. But they are becoming a huge issue, and frankly, we've gotten away with using the phone in the office for a very long time, and we will go back to the practice because the research is very clear what cell phones are doing to our youth, and it's time that we restrict it. And we are well within our authority and the law to be able to do this on school property. And we thought we were being kind of lenient because there's a lot of districts that aren't even allowing them on property, period. So, any questions? We will be rolling this out for first thing tomorrow morning, depending on approval from the board.
I just had a comment. I guess my favorite part, if you could say that about the handbook, because I read them all, is the parents or legal guardians must pick up the device from the building administrator. That to me gives the power back to the parent, because if the parent says, you keep disobeying, you're not doing your homework, you got caught with that cell phone again, you have the whole week instead of the day. So I mean, to me, the parent could use it as a way to enforce, this is important, you need to stop it, and you won't get your phone until I go pick it up Friday.
Yes. Very true.
Mr. Mickelson?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to express my appreciation and how grateful I am for this policy change, not only because of the academic benefits and psychosocial benefits for the students, but when we have elementary kids being sent with smartwatches so that parents can listen in, it's, from my perspective, that's certainly harassing and probably abusive to the teacher, and it is good for the district to step up and protect them, because that's not okay. Thank you.
Any further comment? Mr. Reedy?
I'm curious why we didn't go with just totally banning them on school property.
Honestly, we didn't feel the need to completely eliminate having a phone on a child before and after school, just because some of them need, I do need to clarify, since you said that. There are conditions with 504s or IEPs that a student will be allowed to have their cell phone with them at all times, because a lot of our diabetics with the new pumps, the system is with their phone. So I do need to make that clarification. There will be exceptions, but we will not be creating 504s just so students can keep their cell phone with them. It will have to be another way. But the reason why, Mr. Reedy, that we decided not to just ban them completely, because there are a lot of students that go, are walking, they're on the bus and go home to an empty home. And so to completely take a cell phone off of them where they can't even have it on school property, we felt like was a little drastic for the before and after school hours. We felt that we needed to be sacred of the academic time, and we're really having issues at our 7-8 level. So they did ban it throughout the whole day. But the high school felt that their real problem areas was actually during class and during the period times. So to start with that, but that doesn't limit that if we are still having an enormous amount of problems just because of passing periods or lunch, that they may not choose to go stricter next year. I guess they went as far as they felt they needed to at this time, but it doesn't limit us from going further if we need to.
Thank you. I was just curious as if other schools are doing it, would that make sense, the before and after hours? I agree with that. Thank you.
Sorry. Actually, we eliminated our guest network, so students won't even be able to connect their personal devices to our network. And if you've ever tried to use your phone in the bowels of Rock Springs High School, it is not nice. So this actually will help not having the guest network for them to connect to. Yes, that's true.
Further questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor, approval of the handbook changes for the 2019-2020 school year. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Mrs. McGovern needs some clarification on item 9G.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Jellicoe. Trustees, on item 9G, I believe we have a typo on there. If you could kind of go to the backup documentation for that. And Stephanie, just to make sure, it says recommendation to authorize the district's Title III department to initiate the renewal of image learning. It should be Imagine Learning software through Imagine Learning Incorporated. And we have image there. It's a slight typo, but just to make sure.
I think it was auto-corrected.
So do we, okay, so is there a motion for 9G just to be on the safe side so that we can do that?
So I move that we approve 9G with the correction of image to imagine.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve to renew, and it's a correction from image to imagine learning. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the addendum. The addendum contains two items on it. One is the health premiums. And so based on, okay, go ahead. Okay, so one is the health premiums, and Gina's going to address that. Okay, and then two, board action, we have a hire of a social studies teacher. So please go ahead.
Briefly on the addendum, what was presented in the last July meeting were rates pending a stop-loss carrier approval. And what has happened since that July meeting, we have secured a carrier for our stop-loss. And just kind of as an overview, the stop-loss is that additional insurance for single claims over $200,000 and aggregate over the 20%. So UMR has worked up those rates for us based on our expected claims, and we received that information on Friday. So what you see is kind of the comparison of what you saw in July at the July meeting and the information we received Friday. And the change from there is a slight decrease from July to August, roughly close to 1%.
Thank you. I'm going to take the option of taking these in two different ones, the health premiums, because I want to up some points on that. So may I have a motion for the health premiums, the reduction in the health premiums that came about as a, okay, let me just take a motion.
So moved.
So, okay, it's been moved. Is there a second? Okay, and seconded. I was contacted Friday afternoon when the business office received this new information, and if you will recall, when we did the board approval on the health premiums last year, Mr. Duncan had mentioned that he had there was some additional information out there, some additional requests, and he didn't know if we would result in decreased premiums or not. And so that's what we're dealing with, is the decrease in the premiums. When in my discussions with Mr. Duncan and Mrs. McGovern, I made the decision to bring this forward to the board, realizing that in the interest of transparency, as well as education and just plain transparency and honesty with our employees. What I want to make is we're passing on these slight decreases to employees, realizing that over the last several years, we have basically taken the district has paid many of the increases that we sustained because there were no salary increases. And so we didn't want to pass on increases to insurance when we were not able to increase salaries. So the good news is that we're passing on these reductions to our staff, our employees. But keep in mind that moving forward, in the same interest of transparency, if we have increases to our insurance plans, we're going to have to pass those on as well. So I just wanted to make that point clear as we consider this action item. Is there any further comment? Okay, then there is a motion to approve the health premiums. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion passes. The second item, personnel for board action, accept the hire of Samantha Warden for the social studies instructor position at Rock Springs High School and Rock Springs Junior High School. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, let's go to item number 11 on the agenda, good of the order. Anyone?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Batolo.
I think a lot of people in the room know that we had some instructors that retired last year, and we honored each of those. We had at least one individual, and I don't know if we have more than one, that was kind of forced into a situation where he needed to retire because of the changes in the retirement. I'm George Chopsky. I know it's over 40 years because he was there at Rock Springs High School when I was a sophomore. I wonder if we might be able to convince him, and it may take a lasso to do that, if it's appropriate for us to honor him for his years of service.
In September.
Okay, in September. And we've also had a National Coach of the Year, Brad Dupre. Would that be okay to do also in September?
Any other good of the order? I will just add that we, three board members, Mr. Jackman, Mr. Batolo, and myself, as well as Mrs. McGovern, attended a School Boards Association joint conference with the University of Wyoming Department of Education, College of Education, and the College of Law, that I think we found very informative moving forward. So I think there were some good things there. Any other good of the order? Okay. Item number 12, new business, the vacancy notice. Mrs. Bolton.
Well, I'm not losing sleep as bad. That's kind of some good news, right? Let's give credit where credit's due. The principals have been working their tail off trying to find good candidates and definitely not settling. And the high school found a social studies teacher today, so yay. Clearly, we still have vacancies open. Through lots of discussion and figuring what we could do, the district was able, for the certified positions that were open, we were able to offer temporary long-term sub positions, well, substituting as a temporary position at 40 hours. And if they need medical benefits, they qualify for medical benefits. We'll also give them their 3 personal days and sick days if they're basically acting as an employee. And they will be contracted the 185 days. Their rate is higher. Their daily rate equates to a beginning year no experience teacher, so they'll be making about $50,000 a year if they subbed every single day. But they're still considered hourly. You can imagine the amount of applicants that we had go in that pool. So the principals have absolutely been able to pick quality applicants. Some are almost done with their teaching degree. Some are almost done with their special education degree. We have some retired teachers that wanted to do it, and a lot of them jumped on ones that weren't necessarily the whole year because they didn't want to be locked down the whole year due to traveling and stuff. So as of right now, we have all of our classroom positions filled except for one at the high school, and I think that we have some candidates in place. And the art teacher over in Overland, of which Mr. Allen also has some candidates in place to interview. Otherwise, I'm very confident with the people that have been placed so far in those positions that our kids are in very good hands. And, you know, I just have to give kudos to the teachers. They are stepping up and taking them under their wing, and will be helping with lesson planning through the PLCs. We'll also have, obviously, a different teacher of record. Those positions, I am tracking all of them, and Ms. McGovern can send you all this spreadsheet. I need to update it with the latest substitute hires for you guys. But more than likely what I'll do is towards the middle of November, I will close every single position that is on that website, and then probably a couple days later reopen them, so that we can start with a fresh applicant pool, because otherwise it gets pretty tedious for the principals. And that way we're ready to go with some of these job fairs that are hitting in January. We will have positions open and know what we're looking for. We've also talked to Ms. McGovern about opening just some general positions of which we would know are not technically an open position, but say like I don't have necessarily a math position open at the time. Opening a math position so that we can start drawing applicants and start looking, so that as some of those resignations and things come through, we can jump on it faster versus opening something May 14th, which really puts us in a bind and not having those applicants. So we do have some action plans moving forward, and if we can grab, I will make phone calls again to the University of Wyoming, to South Dakota, to Utah. I will make phone calls to all of the colleges of education, and also the special education programs with our openings, and we will advertise. Hopefully we can grab some semester graduates. So we will still be actively seeking employment, but that's where we're at right now. I actually feel very confident about it. Are there any questions?
Okay. Any other questions? I think that's good news. Yes. Thank you very much.
As good as it can get, right?
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Thank you. I will mention Superintendent McGovern and I did meet with the Dean of the College of Education, Dean Retzel, and we discussed with him the issues, the concerns that we have about the number of applicants, or lack of, is probably more accurate. And he shared some things with us that he's moving forward with the College of Education, changing some of the student teaching, getting students into situations where they are out in with students very early in the process instead of waiting till student teaching. He actually talked about a high school class that they're working to develop, where trying to recruit high school students that might be interested in teaching at the high school level, and then you have a pool going into the university. So I think there are some changes coming from the University of Wyoming with regard to their College of Education. So hopefully some positive signs, but it's going to take some time. And, you know, rural areas like Wyoming are suffering the worst of this teacher shortage. And we all know, I mean, there's 2 or 3 districts in the Salt Lake area now that have matched, have a $50,000 base too. And so money alone is not going to be the recruiter. So we've got to look, and we don't have the necessary candidates coming out of the University of Wyoming to even fill the positions in Wyoming. And for so many years, those candidates have been going elsewhere, and now the word is out that there are places to go elsewhere, that they don't have to stay in Wyoming. And so we're suffering the consequences of that, and we need to get that word out to the legislators that are making those legislative decisions to help us. So that was part of the discussion. Okay, item 12B, the calendar for the months of August, September, October, and November 2019. Our teachers start back tomorrow, so school is here. 12C, July 2019 Head Start Liaison Report is also part of your agenda, and if there is a motion for adjournment, I would entertain it. It's been moved and seconded at 7:59. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.